When people think about America, they often imagine the land of opportunities, the country of Hollywood, Silicon Valley, skyscrapers, fast cars, and endless freedom. On the outside, it looks like the perfect place to live. But if you sit down and talk to everyday Americans, you'll realize that life there is far from perfect. Behind the smiling photos on social media, behind the busy streets and bright lights, millions of people are struggling. Struggling with stress, with anxiety, with loneliness, with the toxic side of social media, and with an economy that often feels like it's working against them. These challenges are so common that almost every American, at some point, deals with at least one of them. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes that the so-called American dream is not as simple and magical as it sounds. Stress is the first and perhaps the most visible challenge. Life in America moves at an unbelievable speed. A typical day for an American starts very early. Many people wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, rush through breakfast, and immediately hit the road. They spend long hours in traffic before even reaching their workplace. Once at work, they face deadlines, meetings, targets, and constant pressure to perform. By the time they return home, they are already drained, but family responsibilities, house chores, and bills are still waiting. Weekends are rarely about true rest. Instead, they are spent grocery shopping, doing laundry, cleaning the house, or running errands that were postponed during the week. Some even take on side jobs to cover extra expenses. In this culture, being constantly busy is often considered a mark of dedication or even success. But the truth is, this lifestyle eats away at peace of mind. High blood pressure, chronic fatigue, digestive problems, and even serious heart conditions are directly linked to this non-stop stress. What makes it worse is the normalization of stress. People accept it as part of life, almost as if being exhausted and anxious is a badge of honor. If stress was the only issue, it would already be heavy enough, but anxiety adds another layer of struggle. Anxiety in America isn't just a medical term, it is a daily experience for millions. Imagine working hard at a job, yet constantly fearing that you might be laid off in the next round of cuts. Imagine finishing college with tens of thousands of dollars in student loans and wondering how you will ever pay them off. Imagine living paycheck to paycheck, where one medical emergency or one car breakdown can push your family into debt. These fears aren't imaginary, they are realities that shape the lives of countless Americans. At night, many people lie awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to silence the endless what-if questions in their heads. What if I lose my job? What if I can't make rent? What if I'm not good enough compared to others? In a society that celebrates achievement and competition, people constantly feel they must prove themselves. And when that pressure becomes unbearable, anxiety grows silently like a shadow that refuses to leave. But perhaps the most unexpected challenge in America is loneliness. Outsiders imagine that in such a crowded and developed country, loneliness would have no place. After all, cities are full of people, offices are full of workers, and social events are everywhere. Yet loneliness is so widespread that health experts have declared it an epidemic. The culture of independence and self-reliance, while empowering in many ways, often leaves individuals emotionally isolated. Families live in different states, sometimes thousands of miles apart. Neighbors often don't know each other's names. People may work side by side for years, but never develop a personal bond. Older adults, especially, find themselves living alone with little human contact. But loneliness is not limited to the elderly. Young adults who move to new cities for education or jobs often struggle to build meaningful relationships. They may spend hours surrounded by people, yet feel deeply disconnected. This emotional gap has serious consequences. It leads to depression, hopelessness, and in severe cases, even suicidal thoughts. In America, you can be in the middle of Times Square, surrounded by thousands, and still feel completely alone. Adding fuel to this fire is social media. It was designed to connect people, to shrink distances, and to create communities. But ironically, it often magnifies loneliness and insecurity. On Instagram, people show off vacations in exotic locations, luxury cars, and picture-perfect families. On TikTok, creators seem endlessly talented, funny, and successful. On Facebook, timelines are filled with birthdays, weddings, promotions, and celebrations. And then there's you sitting at home after a long day, tired, stressed, staring at unpaid bills. That gap between online perfection and real-life struggle is brutal. The human brain naturally compares, and every comparison feels like a reminder that you're not doing enough, not living enough, not achieving enough. For teenagers and young adults, this is even more damaging. They spend hours scrolling, sometimes late into the night, losing sleep, ignoring studies, and disconnecting from face-to-face interactions. Experts now warn that the negative effects of excessive social media use are comparable to the damage smoking does to physical health. Low self-esteem, body image issues, and even cyberbullying all add to the burden. And then there is the economy, a paradox in itself. America is the world's largest economy, producing unimaginable wealth and innovation, yet millions of its people struggle to afford basic necessities. Healthcare is one of the biggest worries. A single hospital visit can cost thousands of dollars, and even with insurance, bills can wipe out savings. Many families avoid going to the doctor simply because they cannot afford it. Education is another massive burden. University fees are so high that students often graduate with debts larger than a house mortgage. These loans take decades to pay off, sometimes forcing people to delay marriage, buying a house, or even starting a family. Housing itself is a crisis. In major cities, rent consumes such a large part of monthly income that saving for the future becomes nearly impossible. Buying a house, once a symbol of the American dream, is now out of reach for many middle-class families. And on the streets of almost every big city, homelessness is visible in the form of tents, makeshift shelters, and people sleeping on sidewalks. The contrast is jarring. Skyscrapers and luxury apartments rising high, while just below them, people struggle for survival. Now here's the thing. All these struggles don't exist separately. They are deeply connected, forming a cycle that traps many people. Picture a young professional living in a big city. She earns a decent salary but also carries student loan debt. Every month, almost half her paycheck goes to rent, another chunk goes to loan repayment, and the rest barely covers groceries and transport. This financial stress keeps her on edge. That stress then triggers anxiety. What if she loses her job? What if her car breaks down? The anxiety slowly pushes her into isolation. She doesn't feel like socializing because her mind is constantly worried. In the quiet moments, she turns to social media for distraction, but the endless comparisons make her feel worse. Now she is stressed, anxious, lonely, and burdened by financial insecurity. This is the cycle that millions of Americans quietly live through every day. But despite the heaviness, there is another side to America, one of resilience, innovation, and determination to fight back. Americans are not strangers to hardship, and one of their strongest qualities is the constant search for solutions. Stress management, for example, is becoming an important part of daily life. Gyms and fitness centers are packed with people who use exercise to release tension. Running, hiking, and yoga are popular not only as physical activities, but also as mental health practices. Meditation apps are downloaded by millions, helping people carve out a few minutes of peace in their busy lives. Workplaces are also beginning to recognize the importance of mental well-being, offering flexible schedules, wellness programs, and mental health days to employees. While not universal, these small changes show that awareness is spreading. Therapy and counseling, once considered taboo or a sign of weakness, have now become mainstream. In the past, many Americans were hesitant to see a therapist because of stigma, but today it is increasingly viewed as a healthy and responsible choice. Television shows, podcasts, and social media influencers openly talk about therapy, encouraging others to seek help. College campuses provide free or discounted counseling services to students, and workplaces are offering employee assistance programs that include therapy sessions. This normalization of mental health care is a significant step forward, giving people tools to cope with anxiety and stress before they spiral out of control. Communities, too, are finding ways to heal loneliness. Local groups organize volunteer programs, neighborhood events, and social gatherings to bring people together. Churches, mosques, temples, and other religious institutions often serve as support networks for those who feel isolated. Online communities, when used positively, also provide comfort. Support groups for anxiety, addiction, grief, or parenting struggles allow people to connect with others who understand their pain. In some cities, libraries and community centers offer free workshops, language classes, and cultural events, all aimed at reducing emotional isolation. Even small gestures, like neighbors inviting each other for a meal, can create meaningful bonds that fight loneliness. Of course, social media remains a double-edged sword. While it often creates feelings of inadequacy, it can also be a source of education, awareness, and connection if used wisely. Campaigns that encourage digital detox are gaining popularity, where people take breaks from constant scrolling and focus on real-life interactions. Some parents are pushing for schools to include lessons on responsible social media use, teaching children to recognize unrealistic online portrayals. Influencers themselves are beginning to share more authentic, unfiltered moments, breaking the illusion of perfection. Movements like body positivity and mental health awareness have gained massive traction online, turning social platforms into spaces where people can find solidarity rather than competition. The economy, however, is the hardest battle to fight. While individual actions can reduce stress or loneliness, financial struggles often require larger structural solutions. The U.S. government has introduced programs to address these issues, though not without criticism. Student loan relief plans aim to reduce the crushing debt faced by graduates. Affordable health care programs, such as Medicaid expansion in certain states, provide coverage to those who otherwise couldn't afford it. Food assistance programs help low-income families put meals on the table. Housing initiatives try to offer affordable options in cities where prices have skyrocketed. These programs are not perfect, and they face political challenges, but they do provide a safety net for millions. And just knowing that help exists, even in small doses, can ease the psychological burden. Still, Americans understand that true solutions require both personal responsibility and collective effort. For many families, financial literacy is becoming an important focus. Schools and organizations now offer workshops on budgeting, saving, and investing. People are learning to cook at home instead of relying on expensive fast food. Others are embracing minimalism, rejecting the constant pressure to buy the latest gadgets or luxury items. This cultural shift, valuing simplicity over material excess, is slowly spreading, especially among younger generations who prioritize experiences, relationships, and mental health over possessions. But perhaps the most inspiring part of the American story is the way people turn personal struggles into movements for change. Survivors of depression or anxiety become advocates, raising awareness and fighting stigma. Communities affected by homelessness or poverty create local charities and shelters. Even celebrities and business leaders use their platforms to speak about mental health, ensuring the conversation stays alive. Universities research new therapies, hospitals innovate affordable healthcare models, and tech companies design apps that support emotional well-being. America's challenges are big, but so is its capacity to respond. At the same time, people are rethinking the meaning of success. For decades, success in America was measured by wealth, career achievements, and material possessions. But more and more people are realizing that true success is balance between work and rest, independence and connection, ambition and gratitude. A good job and a nice house may be important, but without mental peace and strong relationships, they mean little. This cultural shift is slow but powerful. Families are prioritizing time together over extra work shifts. Employees are choosing jobs with better work-life balance instead of chasing the highest salary. Young people are choosing to live in smaller homes or share apartments in order to free up resources for travel, hobbies, or meaningful experiences. What's remarkable is how these shifts reflect a universal truth. No matter where we live, human needs are the same. We all need peace of mind, companionship, and security. America, with all its wealth and power, shows us that money alone cannot buy happiness. The problems of stress, anxiety, loneliness, and financial insecurity are not unique to the United States. They exist everywhere, but the American example magnifies them on a global scale. By looking closely at the struggles and solutions within America, other societies can also learn valuable lessons. The need to balance ambition with well-being, independence with community, and technology with humanity is a lesson for the entire world. To understand America's struggles more deeply, it helps to look at real life stories that reflect the bigger picture. Take the example of a middle-aged father in Texas who works 2 jobs just to support his family. His day begins at 6 a.m. with a construction job and ends at midnight after finishing a shift at a convenience store. By the time he gets home, his children are already asleep. He feels proud to provide for his family, but the exhaustion leaves him with no energy for relationships or personal joy. His stress is constant, his body aches, and his mind never rests. Yet society praises him for being hardworking, ignoring the toll this lifestyle takes on his health and emotional well-being. This story is not rare. It is the reality for millions of working-class Americans. Then there is the college graduate in New York who studied hard, earned a degree, and landed an entry-level job. On paper, she is successful, but her monthly student loan payment is higher than her rent. She lives with roommates in a small apartment, skips social outings to save money, and constantly calculates how long it will take to be debt-free. The anxiety keeps her awake at night, and sometimes she questions whether pursuing higher education was worth the cost. For her, the American dream feels less like freedom and more like a lifetime of financial chains. Or consider the elderly widow in Florida. Her children live in other states, busy with their own lives. She spends most of her days alone, her only social interaction being a weekly trip to the grocery store. She has a television for company, but loneliness creeps in, especially during holidays. The lack of daily human connection affects not just her emotions, but her physical health. Studies show that loneliness can weaken the immune system and increase the risk of diseases. For people like her, the greatest challenge is not money, but the absence of companionship and support. Social media, too, has its stories. A teenager in California spends hours scrolling TikTok, admiring influencers who seem to live perfect lives. She compares herself to them constantly, her clothes, her body, her talents, and always feels she falls short. Even though she has friends in real life, she hides her insecurities and struggles silently. The pressure leads to depression and even thoughts of self-harm. Her parents, busy with work, barely notice until things become severe. Cases like this highlight the darker side of digital life, where validation comes from likes and comments rather than real relationships. All these stories connect to one theme: America's challenges are not abstract. They are personal, lived experiences that touch every corner of society. And yet, within these struggles lies a remarkable spirit of resilience. People refuse to give up. Communities refuse to remain silent. Every problem sparks conversations, movements, and solutions. For instance, grassroots organizations across the country have emerged to fight homelessness. Volunteers provide food, clothing, and shelter. Tech companies are partnering with mental health experts to create apps that provide therapy at low cost. Schools are experimenting with mindfulness programs to teach children stress management at an early age. These steps may not eliminate the problems, but they show that America is constantly evolving, constantly seeking progress. Another important shift happening in America is the reevaluation of priorities. The pandemic accelerated this transformation. When lockdowns forced people to slow down, many realized how fragile life can be and how important balance truly is. Families that once barely spent time together began to reconnect. Workers who were constantly chasing promotions started questioning whether endless work was worth sacrificing health and happiness. Millions quit jobs in what was called the Great Resignation, choosing instead to pursue careers that offered flexibility, creativity, or simply less stress. This cultural reset revealed a hidden truth. People crave meaning and fulfillment, not just money. Young generations, especially Gen Z, are leading this transformation. They are more open about mental health, more vocal about social issues, and more willing to challenge outdated systems. They demand workplaces that prioritize well-being, educational systems that reduce debt, and governments that invest in healthcare and housing. Their activism on platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram shows that social media, despite its flaws, can also be a powerful tool for change. They push for inclusivity, diversity, and fairness, reshaping the cultural landscape in ways that previous generations could not. But challenges remain immense. Healthcare costs continue to rise. Housing shortages keep pushing families to the edge. Economic inequality widens the gap between the wealthy and the working class. Social divisions create mistrust and conflict. For many, hope feels fragile, yet within this tension lies America's paradox. The very struggles that make life difficult also spark creativity, innovation, and resilience. Americans complain, protest, debate, and criticize, but they also dream, build, and push forward. This constant cycle of struggle and progress is what keeps the nation alive and evolving. At the heart of it all lies a lesson for the world. Material wealth, advanced technology, and global influence do not erase human struggles. Behind skyscrapers and smartphones, people still crave love, peace, and belonging. Stress, anxiety, loneliness, and financial pressure are not just American problems. They are human problems. The difference is that America's scale and visibility magnify them, making them easier for the world to observe and learn from. Other countries can look at America's struggles as warnings, as reminders to balance ambition with compassion, progress with community, and freedom with responsibility. So, when we think about America, we must look beyond the Hollywood movies, the Silicon Valley innovations, and the glittering lights of New York City. We must see the father working double shifts, the graduate drowning in debt, the widow battling loneliness, the teenager lost in online comparisons. These stories show us that behind the shine, there are shadows. And yet, those same stories also reveal courage, the courage to face struggles, to seek solutions, and to never stop striving for a better life. In the end, America teaches us a powerful truth. Happiness does not come from wealth alone, nor from endless independence, nor from constant competition. Happiness comes from balance. It comes from strong relationships, from peace of mind, from meaningful connections, and from communities that care. It comes from choosing gratitude over comparison, health over overwork, and compassion over isolation. America, for all its flaws and strengths, is a mirror that reflects what it means to be human, full of dreams, full of struggles, and full of hope.